Let me tell you a simple truth. Most people never admit your life doesn't change the moment you want it to. It changes the moment you refuse to stay the same. There comes a day when something snaps inside you. A quiet voice whispers, "Enough, no more excuses, no more waiting, no more wishing." And in that moment, life bends. Everything you've been running from becomes exactly what pushes you forward. Today might be that day for someone listening, because I'm about to share 7 keys, not theories, not feel-good lines, but real, uncomfortable, transformative keys that force your life to rise. If you're ready, let's begin. The first key point is about refusing to negotiate with your own potential, because that silent negotiation is the exact place where most people lose the battle long before the world ever sees them try. You know that moment when you wake up with fire in your chest, ideas in your mind, ambition in your spirit, but then a whisper inside quietly asks, "Do you really need to push today?" That whisper has stolen more dreams than failure ever has. It doesn't shout, it doesn't fight, it simply convinces you to settle. And the painful truth is this: every time you accept that negotiation, you trade a piece of who you could be for who you're willing to remain. Most people don't lack talent. What they lack is a refusal to compromise with their own limitations. Potential is not this magical force that grows on its own. It is a responsibility. It demands something from you. It demands that you show up even when the results aren't immediate, even when progress feels invisible, even when you feel like the smallest version of yourself. The negotiation begins when you tell yourself you'll start later, or you need to feel ready, or the timing isn't right. But potential doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It grows when you decide that your purpose is more important than your preferences. Think about the mental deals you've made with yourself over the years. The goals you lowered because they felt too heavy. The dreams you delayed because life got busy. The commitments you broke because you convinced yourself that a little break won't hurt. Every one of those was a negotiation, and every negotiation built a pattern. The pattern becomes a lifestyle, and the lifestyle becomes your reality. You don't wake up one day feeling stuck by accident. Your negotiations stacked up quietly until they trapped you in a life smaller than your capabilities. But the moment you declare that there will be no more bargaining with your greatness, everything shifts. You stop asking yourself whether you can, and you start asking how you will. You stop waiting for motivation, and you start relying on discipline. You stop fearing the work, and you start fearing the consequences of avoiding it. That's the difference between people who rise and people who remain. One group keeps debating with their doubts. The other ends the debate entirely. Greatness begins when you eliminate internal negotiations and commit to the hard path without conditions. It's not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming non-negotiable. When you reach that point, your confidence changes. Your posture changes. Your decisions become sharper because they are no longer based on temporary emotions but long-term identity. You begin to see the areas where you've been holding back, not because you're incapable, but because you've been too polite with your own excuses. And once you confront that truth, you can't go back. You can't unsee the gap between who you are and who you could be. That gap becomes fuel. And the most powerful part is this: the world begins to respond differently when you stop negotiating with yourself. Opportunities show up because your energy becomes stronger. People respect you because your consistency becomes obvious. Life opens doors because you're finally stepping into it with conviction instead of hesitation. Potential rewards commitment, not conversation. And the day you stop discussing your greatness and start demanding it from yourself, that's the day everything begins to move. The second key point is about building habits that don't ask for permission. Habits are so deeply rooted in your identity that they function whether you're inspired, exhausted, or emotionally drained. Most people spend their lives waiting for a certain feeling to push them into action. They wait for clarity, for motivation, for a surge of energy that magically makes everything easier. But the truth is, the people who transform their lives aren't operating from emotion. They're operating from structure. They design systems that carry them through the days their mind tries to negotiate, and those systems become the invisible force behind every breakthrough they create. When you rely on motivation, your life becomes unpredictable. One good day pushes you forward, and one bad day pulls you back 10 steps. You become a slave to your moods, to your doubts, to your temporary frustrations. But habits don't care about how you feel. Habits don't ask, "Are you ready?" They simply execute. They turn effort into rhythm, discipline into routine, and consistency into a lifestyle. And the moment you install the right habits, you stop questioning your ability to succeed because the actions needed for success are already happening automatically. Think about how many moments you've lost because you paused to decide whether you should work on yourself that day. That pause is dangerous. In that pause, doubt grows, laziness whispers, distractions multiply. The human mind is incredibly persuasive when it wants to avoid discomfort. It will convince you to rest when you should rise, to postpone when you should begin, to dream instead of doing. But a life-changing habit eliminates the pause entirely. There is no question. There is only the action. Just like breathing, just like walking. It becomes part of who you are, not something you must constantly battle yourself to complete. The real power of habits shows up when life gets chaotic. Anyone can be disciplined when everything is peaceful. Anyone can stay consistent when the road is smooth. But habits built on identity survive storms. They survive emotional lows, tough seasons, and unexpected setbacks. You don't abandon them because they're woven into the fabric of your daily existence. And that's what separates the extraordinary from the average. Average people rebuild discipline after every setback. Extraordinary people lean on systems that never disappeared in the first place. You must build habits that strengthen your mind, stretch your discipline, and reinforce the person you're becoming. Maybe it's waking up early to protect your time. Maybe it's reading daily to sharpen your thinking. Maybe it's training your body to build resilience. Maybe it's dedicating quiet time to reset your mental clarity. These aren't tasks, they're anchors. Anchors that keep you grounded when life tries to pull you back into old patterns. When your habits are aligned with your future, they act like a silent GPS guiding you toward the version of you that already exists in your imagination. And the beauty is, once these habits take root, they shape your character without you even noticing. They build confidence because you no longer break promises to yourself. They build momentum because each day becomes a small victory. They build identity because you start living as the person you once only talked about becoming. You don't chase discipline, you embody it. You don't wish for progress, you manufacture it. And while the world tries to rely on fluctuating motivation, your life becomes unstoppable because it's built on habits that don't need permission to function. The third key point is about surrounding yourself with people who stretch your standards, because nothing influences your destiny more quietly or more powerfully than the company you keep. Most people underestimate the emotional weight of their environment. They think their goals are purely personal, purely internal, purely self-driven. But no matter how strong your willpower is, the voices around you eventually become the voice inside you. If you spend enough time with people who normalize excuses, you start accepting excuses. If you spend enough time with people who celebrate mediocrity, you begin lowering the bar without even realizing it. Your circle shapes your standards long before it shapes your results. There comes a moment in every person's journey when they must ask themselves an uncomfortable question: who around me actually wants to see me grow? Not everyone clapping for you is cheering for your elevation. Some clap because it entertains them, not because it empowers them. Some support you as long as you don't surpass their comfort zone. And some stay close only because your smallness benefits their security. Growth exposes people. When you start evolving, the truth about your relationship surfaces. Who encourages you, who resents you, who fears your transformation, and who silently hopes you stay the same. The people who stretch your standards don't always make you feel good in the moment. They challenge your excuses. They question your limitations. They remind you of the promises you made to yourself. They bring conversations that make you think bigger, work harder, and live with greater accountability. These are the people who force you to rise to the level of your potential instead of sinking to the level of your comfort. They don't let you hide behind your circumstances. They don't let you romanticize your struggles. And they don't allow you to downgrade your dreams just because the journey is difficult. It's important to realize that connection is not the same as alignment. You can love people who aren't good for your growth. You can enjoy people who aren't good for your discipline. You can feel comfortable with people who aren't good for your future. That's why being intentional with your circle is an act of maturity, not betrayal. You're not abandoning people, you're choosing yourself. You're choosing your evolution. You're choosing a life where your environment fuels you instead of draining you. Support should not be accidental, it should be strategic. The right people don't just accept your ambition, they ignite it. When you finally place yourself among people who operate at a higher level, something powerful happens inside you. Your conversations change, your standards rise, your goals expand. You begin to adopt their mindset, their habits, their discipline. You start thinking in terms of possibility instead of probability. The energy around you becomes a mirror, reflecting back the version of you that you're working to become. And without needing external pressure, you naturally evolve, because the baseline of the room you're in becomes higher than your previous ceiling. And as you grow, you'll start recognizing the environments that once felt normal to you now feel limiting. You'll feel out of place in circles that don't challenge you. You'll feel restless around people who settle for less. This is not arrogance, this is alignment. Your spirit knows when you've outgrown a room, and instead of shrinking yourself to fit back in, you seek rooms that force you to expand again. That's how your life transforms, not through dramatic events, but through the quiet, consistent elevation of the people you choose to allow into your world. The fourth key point is about embracing the pain you keep avoiding, because the very discomfort you run from is the doorway to every version of yourself you haven't met yet. Most people treat pain like an enemy, something to escape, something to numb, something to pretend isn't there. But pain has always been one of life's most honest teachers. It shows you the weak spots you ignore, the truths you suppress, and the changes you've postponed. The reason pain feels sharp is because it touches the areas of your life that have been left unattended for too long. And until you confront it, it keeps coming back stronger, louder, and more disruptive. Avoidance is one of the most silent forms of self-sabotage. When you dodge hard conversations, they don't disappear. They sit in the background waiting to explode. When you avoid discipline, the consequences don't fade. They accumulate quietly until they overwhelm you. When you ignore emotional wounds, they don't heal. They grow roots that shape your fears, your reactions, your decisions. You cannot outrun the things you refuse to face. Pain ignored becomes pain multiplied, but pain confronted becomes strength expanded. The moment you turn toward what scares you instead of away from it, you reclaim the power it had over you. The truth is, transformation is uncomfortable by design. Growth stretches you. Discipline challenges your impulses. Honesty forces you to see parts of yourself you've hidden. Letting go of old habits stings because those habits once protected you. Taking responsibility hurts because it exposes how long you've been holding yourself back. But discomfort is not a sign that you're failing. It's a sign that you're evolving. Every time you step into a discomfort you once avoided, your capacity increases. You become emotionally tougher, mentally clearer, and spiritually stronger. You rise not because the world becomes easier, but because you become bigger than the things that once intimidated you. Remember that every major breakthrough in your life will require you to cross a threshold of discomfort. If you want deeper relationships, you must confront your communication flaws. If you want financial freedom, you must confront your spending habits and discipline. If you want self-respect, you must confront the behaviors that made you lose it. If you want peace, you must confront the chaos you've tolerated for too long. Pain is not the obstacle, it's the initiation. It prepares you. It shapes you. It cleans out the internal clutter so your next chapter has space to grow. When you finally stop running from what hurts, you discover something shocking. The fear was bigger than the reality. The anticipation of pain is always 10 times worse than the pain itself. The moment you face the thing you've been avoiding, You feel a strange sense of relief, even if it's hard, because deep down your soul recognizes truth, and truth always feels lighter, even when it's heavy. You realize the avoidance weakened you more than the pain ever could. The wound wasn't the problem, the hiding was. And the most empowering shift happens when pain no longer threatens you, but trains you. You begin to see discomfort as a signal that you're on the right path, not the wrong one. You stop interpreting struggle as punishment and start seeing it as preparation. You build a relationship with difficulty that most people never understand. Instead of asking, "How do I escape this?" you begin asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" That shift alone can change the entire trajectory of your life, because once pain becomes your teacher instead of your enemy, there is truly nothing left that can stop you. The fifth key point is about learning to protect your mental real estate, because your mind is the most valuable property you will ever own, and yet most people leave it wide open for anything and anyone to walk through. Every thought you entertain, every fear you feed, every opinion you absorb becomes a tenant in your inner world. Some thoughts pay rent by giving you clarity, confidence, and direction, but others cost you peace, drain your energy, and sabotage your progress. The problem is, we often let the worst tenants stay the longest. We allow negativity, doubt, and past wounds to occupy premium mental space that could be used to build the future we actually want. If you don't guard your mind, the world will fill it for you. Your mental real estate is constantly under attack by social pressure, by comparison, by overstimulation, by the noise of a world that rewards distraction more than focus. And unless you intentionally protect that space, you become reactive instead of proactive. You start thinking thoughts that aren't yours. You start believing things that contradict your potential. You start carrying emotional weight that was never meant for you. Protecting your mind means deciding what gets in, what stays, and what needs to be evicted. It means refusing to let negativity set up camp in your thoughts. It means filtering the information you consume with the same care you'd use when letting someone into your home. One of the biggest threats to mental real estate is uncontrolled worry. Worry has a way of exaggerating problems and shrinking your sense of capability. It creates chaos in your head long before there's any chaos in your life. It drains your energy before you've even taken a step forward. Most people don't realize that worry is not a sign of responsibility. It's a sign of misplaced focus. You cannot grow while your mind is constantly forecasting worst-case scenarios. Protecting your mind means refusing to rent space to imaginary problems. It means replacing overthinking with intentional thinking, anxiety with preparation, and fear with clarity. Another silent intruder is comparison. When you constantly measure your life against someone else's highlight reel, you distort your perception of your own progress. Comparison steals gratitude, destroys focus, and convinces you that you're behind even when you're exactly where you need to be. The mind absorbs this distortion and begins operating from insecurity instead of ambition. Protecting your mental real estate means recognizing that someone else's timeline has nothing to do with your destiny. It means honoring your pace, respecting your journey, and refusing to let someone else's success make you feel inadequate. Your mind cannot thrive if it's cluttered with envy. Equally powerful is the need to guard your mental space from self-inflicted negativity. Sometimes the most destructive voice isn't the world's, it's your own. The inner critic that tells you you're not enough, the memories that whisper that you failed before, the insecurities that replay old stories. Protecting your mind means learning to intercept those thoughts before they become beliefs. It means challenging the narratives that hold you back and replacing them with narratives that pull you forward. It means speaking to yourself with the same strength, compassion, and honesty you would offer someone you deeply care about. You cannot elevate your life with a mind that constantly tears you down. And finally, protecting your mental real estate requires creating boundaries: emotional, digital, relational, and personal. Not every conversation deserves your attention. Not every conflict deserves your energy. Not every opinion deserves a response. You must curate your mental environment with intention. The same way a gardener protects soil so life can grow from it. When you honor the space inside your mind, you begin thinking clearer, feeling stronger, and moving with more purpose. You stop living in mental clutter and start living in mental alignment. And that shift transforms how you see yourself, how you respond to challenges, and how boldly you pursue the life you know you're meant to build. The sixth key point is about committing to becoming someone your future self will thank. Because every choice you make today echoes into the life you'll be living years from now. Most people underestimate how deeply their daily actions shape their destiny. They think the big decisions define their life, but it's actually the small, repetitive, often invisible choices that slowly carve the person they become. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, growth over distraction, truth over avoidance, you're sending a message forward in time. I'm building someone stronger than who I am right now. And every time you choose the easier path, you send a different message. I'm leaving my future self to clean up what I don't want to deal with today. Your future self is always watching, quietly, depending on you to stop abandoning the person you have the potential to become. When you live with the awareness that you're building someone you haven't met yet, your behavior changes. Suddenly, skipping the hard work feels more expensive. Wasting time feels heavier. Procrastination feels like betrayal, because now it's not just about what you want in the moment, it's about who you're shaping in the long term. Imagine meeting the future version of yourself 10 years from now. Would that person hug you with gratitude or look at you with disappointment? That question alone can completely shift your priorities. The life you dream of doesn't come from chance, it comes from choosing the difficult, necessary, unglamorous steps your future self desperately needs you to take. One of the most powerful aspects of this mindset is that it pulls you out of short-term thinking. Humans are naturally wired to chase immediate comfort and instant gratification, even when those choices damage long-term happiness. But when you commit to your future self, you begin valuing long-term fulfillment over short-lived pleasure. You start making decisions with a wider lens. You start asking, will this serve me later? Instead of, does this feel good now? And that one shift creates a ripple effect. Your habits improve, your mindset strengthens, your resilience grows. Suddenly you're not just reacting to life, you're building it with intention. There will always be moments when you don't feel like improving, when the present version of you wants to quit, compromise, or shrink. That's when thinking of your future self becomes the anchor. Discipline becomes easier when you realize the consequences of abandoning it. Courage becomes easier when you imagine the strength you'll gain. Patience becomes easier when you see how it compounds into wisdom. And perseverance becomes easier when you understand that every difficult step today removes a burden from the shoulders of the version of you who will one day look back and say, "Thank you for not giving up on me." Living for your future self doesn't make the journey easy. It makes the journey meaningful. You must also understand that becoming someone your future self will thank requires making decisions your current self might not immediately enjoy. Growth often looks like sacrifice in the present. It might mean waking up earlier, separating from people who drain you, saying no to temptations disguised as opportunities, or investing time in skills that don't pay off right away. Your future self is built on these sacrifices. Greatness rarely feels great in real time. It feels tiring, repetitive, uncomfortable, and slow. But the payoff is enormous. You're constructing a life with fewer regrets, fewer what-ifs, fewer apologies for not trying sooner. You're doing the work today to free yourself tomorrow. The beauty of committing to your future self is that eventually it stops feeling like a burden and starts feeling like a privilege. You begin to realize that you're not just surviving your days, you're designing your destiny. You're not just reacting to life. You're shaping a version of yourself equipped with strength, clarity, and resilience. When you live this way, your choices become more aligned, your path becomes clearer, and your sense of purpose becomes unshakable. And one day, that future self will stand taller, breathe easier, and walk with confidence. Not because life magically improved, but because you decided to build someone worthy of the dreams you once only dared to imagine. The seventh key point is about choosing purpose over popularity. Because the moment you start living for approval, you stop living for yourself. Most people don't realize how much of their potential they sacrifice trying to fit into expectations that were never designed for their growth. They shrink their dreams so they don't look too ambitious. They silence their ideas so they don't seem too different. They hide their passion so they don't appear too intense. But the truth is this: the more you try to please everyone, the more invisible you become to yourself. Purpose demands courage, popularity demands conformity, and you cannot hold both at the same time. At some point, you must decide whether you want applause or alignment, because they rarely coexist. When you choose purpose, you're choosing a path that won't always make sense to others. People might question your decisions, misunderstand your intentions, or judge your priorities, and that's okay. Purpose isn't built for the crowd, it's built for the calling inside you. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in history came from people who were criticized long before they were celebrated. They weren't trying to be liked, they were trying to be effective. They weren't chasing validation, they were chasing impact. Your purpose may lead you away from what's familiar, away from what's socially accepted, and away from what makes you comfortably blend in. But that discomfort is the birthplace of authenticity. It's important to understand that popularity is temporary. People's opinions fluctuate as quickly as their attention spans. One day they praise you, the next day they criticize you, and the day after that they forget you. Building your identity on that unstable foundation is like building a house on shifting sand. You become emotionally dependent on constant approval, and the moment it disappears, your confidence disappears with it. Purpose, however, is steady. It remains the same whether people cheer for you or ignore you. It anchors you. It gives your actions depth. It makes your journey meaningful even when no one is watching. Popularity asks, do they like me? Purpose asks, am I becoming who I'm meant to be? Choosing purpose also means accepting that not everyone will come with you as you grow. Some people are attached to the version of you that made them comfortable. They liked you when your dreams were small. They liked you when your boundaries were flexible. They liked you when your light didn't intimidate theirs. But when your life starts expanding, it exposes who genuinely supports you and who is merely comfortable with your limitations. Losing people in the pursuit of purpose isn't a tragedy, it's alignment. It clears space for those who are meant to walk with you at the next level. And while purpose may require sacrifices, it rewards you with something popularity never can: self-respect. There is a quiet, powerful confidence that comes from knowing you're living in truth rather than playing a role. You stop apologizing for your ambition. You stop dimming your light to protect others' insecurities. You stop needing external validation to feel internally worthy. When you choose purpose, you no longer fear being misunderstood. You fear living a life that isn't authentically yours. You stop asking, will they approve? And start asking, does this honor my future? And that shift alone changes the entire direction of your life eventually. The world respects those who choose purpose, even if it doesn't recognize them immediately. Results speak louder than opinions. Consistency outlasts criticism, and authenticity attracts the right people, the right opportunities, and the right environment. When you live with purpose, you move differently, not because you're trying to impress anyone, but because you know you're aligned with something bigger than popularity. Your decisions become clearer, your voice becomes stronger, your path becomes more defined, and you stop living as a character in someone else's expectations and start living as the author of your own destiny. In the end, everything comes down to a single choice: whether you will continue to live at the level you've known or rise to the level you were designed for. Every struggle, every delay, every disappointment was never meant to break you. It was meant to build a version of you, capable of carrying the greatness you've been asking for. Life doesn't reward intention, It rewards commitment. And the moment you decide that your future deserves more than your excuses, everything begins to shift in your favor. This journey isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. It's about showing up on the days when your confidence is low, when your energy is drained, when your mind is flooded with doubt, because discipline built in the shadows becomes destiny revealed in the light. You may not control every circumstance, but you control your response, your attitude, and the meaning you choose to give each moment. And those choices, those tiny daily choices, are what separate dreamers from achievers. There will always be noise, opinions, comparisons, expectations, but the world only recognizes one voice in the end, the voice of results. And those results are born when you stop waiting for the perfect time, the perfect plan, the perfect feeling, and decide that now is the only moment you truly have. The courage you show today becomes the confidence you stand on tomorrow. So take the lessons, take the pain, take the failures, and turn them into fuel. Turn them into focus. Turn them into a fire inside you that doesn't fade when life gets heavy, but grows stronger because of it. You've come too far to stop, and you've grown too much to go back. Your story isn't finished. It's just reaching the chapter where everything starts to make sense. And when you finally look back, months from now, years from now, you'll realize the breakthrough wasn't a moment. It was a decision to rise, to believe, to fight for the life you knew you were capable of living. This is your reminder, your wake-up call, your turning point. Your future is waiting for you to step into it with conviction. Go claim what's yours.